Well, I came into the Hill Country last night. Today I'm going to the Emergency Command Center. I'm going to be going up in a Coast Guard helicopter and touring the damage and meeting with families, meeting with those that are engaged in emergency response and recovery. And I got to say, look, the agony that Texas is feeling right now, Jack, there aren't words to describe it. Our state is grieving at a level. This tragedy hits close to home for so many of us, so many families in Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and all across the state send their kids to camp here. Just last week, we were here picking our daughter up from camp just down the river from Camp Mystic, and it is, there are not words to describe the horror that unfolded. It is every parent's nightmare. Right now, the death count across the state is 82 confirmed fatalities. There's still 10 girls missing from Camp Mystic, and we are all praying for those girls, for their safe recovery. But the agony of moms and dads, it is unbearable. At the same time, I want to say a word of encouragement in the face of this agony, which is when Texans face crisis, we come together. And Texas is a big state. We unfortunately have many natural disasters, whether hurricanes or tornadoes or wildfires. Every time, and I'm on the ground, I see it every time, every community, Texans come together, we help each other. You know, you look at the rushing water behind me and it's still higher and moving faster than normal. There were over 850 rescues on that river as the flooding was occurring. We had Coast Guardsmen who were incredibly heroic, Texas DPS who went, Texas Emergency Management that stepped in, and then just lots of ordinary Texans, Eagle Scouts who were pulling campers out of the way, friends and neighbors who were helping people. There was an incredible story of a young woman who was swept 4 miles down the river until she grabbed a tree and held onto the tree for several hours. She was rescued from that tree. Those stories are incredible, and we see at the same time, Jack, we see the churches stepping up, and this is really a time when the church should show God's love and help our neighbors, and we're seeing that in terms of providing food and clothing and love and comfort and all of that. This is an unspeakable tragedy that has touched Texans across our great state, but we will come through this because we'll come together and we will help each other come through this. The Guadalupe River is a beautiful river. I have floated and swam in this river dozens of times. The Hill Country, I think, is the prettiest part of the entire state, and there's a century-long tradition of campers coming here. Thousands upon thousands of little girls and little boys have camped and had just magical experiences here in Texas. That's why this touches so many. I can tell you that there are multiple girls that go to school with my daughters who were at Camp Mystic, who were among those killed or those missing. And over the last several days, I've spoken with parents who are grieving, parents who are just scared. Where's my daughter? Can you help me find my daughter? And I try to connect them with the sheriff or with emergency management, and that level of panic. You know, I talked to a dad who just in the hours this was unfolding just began driving here to search for his daughter. That agony is enormous. You know, I will say there will come a time, and in any natural disaster there are stages to us. The first stage is search and rescue, get everyone out of harm's way. And that has proceeded the last several days. It's still ongoing. We're still trying to find those 10 missing girls from Mystic. After that, you've got to begin the recovery and rebuilding, and federal resources are there. In terms of the search and rescue, within hours of this flood beginning, I was on the phone with Governor Abbott. I was on the phone with Lieutenant Governor Patrick. I was on the phone with Nim Kidd, the head of the Texas Department of Emergency Management. And Jack, I was on the phone with President Trump. I called the president. He was at dinner at the time. I said, Mr. President, this flood in central Texas, it looks like it is really bad. There is a potential for a very significant loss of life. And the president, to his credit, said, Ted, anything Texas needs, the answer is yes. And so we had, within hours, helicopters in the air. We had DPS helicopters in the air. We had Coast Guard helicopters in the air. and they were rescuing people from harm's way. After that is the rebuilding. And then after that stage, there will naturally be a process of looking back and assessing, okay, how could this disaster have been averted? And I will say as a dad, it is frustrating that those girls were not out of harm's way earlier. And I'm sure we will ask questions about how, when the next flood occurs, how do we make sure that you don't have 7- and 8-year-old little girls in cabins right by the river's edge as the floodwaters are rising? And I hope, look, with any disaster, you see people playing politics and trying to finger point at their political opponents. That's not the time for this. The time for this is to come together and support each other, but we should also have a serious examination of what steps can be put in place in terms of early warning and being proactive to make sure that you're not leaving especially children vulnerable and in harm's way, and I'm certain we will engage in that process.